Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So we are going over the book by John Maxwell, Thinking for a Change, and today we are on chapter 7, which is skill 4. Recognize the importance of realistic thinking. But before we go into that, we're going to go ahead and invite some people onto here. I wish this process was a little bit faster, but unfortunately it's not. That's my next request of Facebook. Create a button where if you are doing a video, you can invite everybody onto it without inviting them individually, because that would be great. Hope everybody is having a great day. So I hope you guys are enjoying this book so far. I know we've got quite a bit out of it. It's kind of, a lot of the things that he brings up in this book kind of made us rethink some things that we're even doing. So we're like, okay, well, this is something that needs to be addressed and we need to look at now to make it better. And I feel like it's like that out of all of his books. Like, even if I don't get a lot out of one book, there's always something that stands out where I'm like, that was it. That's what I needed. But this book so far, everything in it has been great. I'm like, oh, I can apply this here, or this is going to work really well with what we're doing. So it's a great book. So if you haven't bought it yet, I highly recommend you do. We do post the notes on each chapter of just what we're getting out of the chapter, but it's just good to read. Alrighty. There we go. Alright, so recognize the importance of realistic thinking. So why should you recognize the importance of realistic thinking? Number one, realistic thinking minimizes the downside risks. So only by recognizing and considering consequences could you plan for them. If you already have a plan for the worst case scenario, you're going to minimize the risks. So it's not even a matter of, howdy Jeff and Brandy, thank you kindly, hello. It's not even a matter of thinking negatively, but when you plan for the worst case scenario, you know how to better adjust, or the plan of what you need to do if shit hits the fan. Pardon my French, but that's just how I talk. And it's a good thing to be realistic about, because you can't just expect always the best, because unfortunately life does not work that way. And sometimes life likes to throw you a curveball, and you got to be able to know how you're going to handle it. Number two, realistic thinking gives you a target and game plan. So when people first start in MLM, the biggest unrealistic expectation that we hear is, I'm going to make $1 million in next month. I'm like, okay, well, have you ever made $1 million in MLM before? No. Have you ever made $1 million outside of MLM? No. I'm like, okay, well, that's not realistic. So the first thing you need to learn is, where do you want to be at? Are you $1,000 a month extra starting out, $1,000 a week extra starting out, or $1,000 a day? Where you're going to be at on that chart is going to determine where you need to start and what the goal needs to be at the beginning. Once you get that, then we can talk about the bigger numbers. Because depending on where your skills are going to be and what number you're going to be starting out with, most people start out at the $1,000 a month. That's where most people start, unless you have a business and you've done this before and you could just call a bunch of people and everybody's just going to flow right in. But for the average person, it's going to take a lot more work in the beginning. So the skills are going to be very different from the $1,000 a month person to the $1,000 a day. The skills are going to be very different, and you need to learn the basics before you learn the more complicated stuff. Mm-hmm. Ooh, excuse me. Number 3, realistic thinking is the catalyst for change. So you can't hope for success, you need to take action. And being realistic with your goals will help you become more clear on the road you're gonna have to take. And if you don't have a clear vision of where you are going, you're not gonna go anywhere. Number 4, realistic thinking provides security. So disappointment is the difference between expectations and reality. Number 5, actually, could you check the thermostat? It seems ungodly hot in here. We've been having issues with our air conditioning lately. It likes to switch from air to scalding hot. So yeah, it's very toasty in here. My goodness. It's another thing on the to-do list. We're gonna have somebody come out and look at that shortly. Anywho, number 5, realistic thinking gives you credibility. So leaders who are continuously surprised by the unexpected soon lose their credibility with their followers. But the leaders who think realistically and plan accordingly position their organizations to win, and it gives their people confidence in them. So before casting your vision, leaders need to ask themselves, is it possible, for one? Can everybody do it? Does this dream include everyone or just a few? Is this going to benefit the entire team? And like I said, it's got to work for everybody. It can't just work for you, because otherwise there's no duplication. If you're the only one succeeding, you're not going to be able to help everybody else succeed if you can't teach it to them. Excuse me. Hello, Angela. Nice to see you too. Thank you for jumping on. And then the third thing, have I identified the areas that will make this dream difficult to achieve? So again, just understanding like where are going to be the bumps in the road? How are people going to get stuck? What are you going to do to be able to resolve it? And already having that in place. Number 6, realistic thinking provides a foundation to build on. So it helps you to make the idea available or usable by taking away the wish factor. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I could do this. I wish I can make this much in my other business. I wish I could do this. But the moment you break it down of what exactly it's going to take to get to the level that you want to get to, the more real it becomes, and it's no longer a wish, it's reality, and then you know exactly what to do. Number 7, realistic thinking is a friend to those in trouble. So if creativity is what you do if you are unafraid of the possibility of failure, then reality is the dealing with the failure if it does happen. Realistic thinking gives you something accurate to fall back on during those times of trouble. Number 8, realistic thinking brings the dream to fruition. So idealism increases the direct proportion to the one's distance from the problem. And that was by John Galsworthy? Yeah, Galsworthy. So if you don't take a realistic look at your goals, what it will take to accomplish it, you will never be able to achieve it. So those are the things that he went over. And now oh, Jesus. I had a typo there. I was like, what in the world did I just type there? I put hot to recognize. It's how to recognize the importance of realistic thinking. So, number 1, develop an appreciation for the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, but what are you going to do about it once you hear the truth? President Henry S. Truman said, I never give them hell. I just tell the truth and they think it is hell. A man occasionally stumbles over the truth, but just pick himself up, hurry off as if nothing happened, and that was by Winston Churchill. The truth will set you free, but first it's going to make you angry. If you want to become a realistic thinker, you need to get comfortable with dealing with the truth and face up to it. It's never fun when you have a good idea that you think is going to be great, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe it's not so great. But the more you come to terms with it, it's just going to get easier, because you're going to have more ideas, and just don't get down on yourself if something doesn't work out. Number 2, do your homework. You can't think well in the absence of facts. You need to do your research. You need to spend time thinking about it. We talked about that in the creativity chapter. You need to spend time really thinking things through and looking at all the different avenues of like what can go very well, but also what can go very badly. How is this going to work with everybody else, and can everybody else do it? Number 3, think through the pros and cons. Again, just spending time thinking about it. What's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and if there is something bad, how are you going to fix it? Or what's the best way to go about it? Number 4, picture the worst case scenario. Your goal isn't to be negative or expect the worst. It's just to be ready in case something happens. That way you give yourself the best chance possible for a positive result, no matter what. And then number 5, align your thinking with your resources. So once you identify the worst case scenario, you then see the gaps between what you desire, and you can now use your resources to fill them. So with that, that's what I got out of this chapter. It was a good chapter. So, oh, I thought I had more there. I didn't. But anywho, it was a great chapter. I hope you guys got something out of that. But I'm going to turn this over to Jeff. And what did you get out of this chapter?
I mean, very similar. The main thing is you know, you always hear expand your thinking. Not only expand your thinking, but dream big, dream huge, dream outside. So I think it is the dream can be unrealistic. The dream can be unrealistic. Your vision of where you're going to end up can be a little unrealistic. But when it comes to your goals have to start becoming more realistic. Your plans have to definitely be realistic, and your DMO has to be realistic. You know, people come and they're like, you know, I'm going to show 38 people today the program. Well, not that that's never been done, but do you have a way to do it? And a lot of times people don't have any type of plan that will actually produce those numbers. So I'm like, that's not really going to work. And it's I get the dream, I get the expectation of what you want to accomplish, but your plan to get there is not going to work. So you kind of have to set your goal in concrete. That's what I'm going to accomplish. Your plans change based on the environment and based on the context of what's going on. So dreams can be unrealistic, and you want to constantly kind of push things out there. You know, if you have a dream to, you know, sit and have dinner with Michael Jordan, that might be kind of completely unrealistic at this point. But if you build to several $1 million, I'm sure he attends a benefit dinner somewhere. You'd have to figure out where that is and when that is and how that is. It seems unrealistic at the time. But if your plan is to get to, you know, millions of dollars in income, you're going to be able to afford the ability to go there. So dreams can be unrealistic. Your vision of the future can be a little unrealistic. Like, that's okay. But when it comes to your goals, when it comes to your plans, when it comes to your daily method of operation, that is where I think John really talks about your thinking has to be on track. He gave a lot of examples of different instances where his optimism basically overrode what was actually going on. And John says that's one of his biggest drawbacks, or one of his biggest weaknesses. I wouldn't think John Maxwell has any weaknesses, but that's one of his biggest weaknesses. He's so optimistic that he just believes he can get anything to happen. He also is, unfortunately, he's unrealistic with time. And this one he wrote about later in many other books. Is he realized he was very unrealistic with time. So what he does is he uses the concept of doubling it. Anytime he's like, oh, we need to get this done in 2 weeks, he's like, it's really going to take a month. He goes, because the way that optimistic, super positive people think is they think in terms of no problems. They think in terms of it's going to be smooth. They think in terms of this is going to be easy, it's going to be smooth. Everybody will just get it right away. Everybody will buy in. And that's not true. Typically, it takes twice as long to get stuff done. So this is also true in direct sales and MLM. People are like, oh man, the top of the chart, I'm going to hit that in 30 days. Have you ever done this before? No. I think Brandy kind of mentioned this in another way when she was talking about, $1,000 a month, $1,000 a week, or $1,000 a day. That's kind of how I always, evaluate people. I'm like, well, what are you trying to get to? $1,000, $1,000 a month, $1,000 a week, or $1,000 a day? And you get people who are like, I'm going to make $1,000 a minute. I was like, great. What did you make last month? $1,300. I'm like, in ever? He's like, yeah, that's my biggest month ever. Not in MLM. That's my biggest month ever in job, work, anything. I made $1,300. So you want to go from $1,300 in a month to $1,000 a minute. I'm like, that's where, that's great. That's a dream down the road. But like the fact that you want to try to accomplish it in the next 90 days tells myself that you're setting yourself up for what? Disappointment. And John talks about disappointment is the difference between your expectation and what is actually really realistic and is going to happen. And I see this all the time. People just, kind of stab themselves or shoot themselves in the foot because it's just not possible. The numbers aren't possible. So that's where mentorship really, is good. Coaching is okay, but mentorship is better. Mentorship is better because the mentor, if you really have the respect built right and you have that trust, you can say, look, here's what you need to go do in your first month. And this is the lessons you need to learn. Here's what you need to go do in your second, third month. There was a guy on my team years ago that basically after 4 or 5 months came up to me and he's like, I'm done, I'm quitting. I'm like, okay, let's go get a drink. And I only said, let's go, I don't even drink, but he was Polish, so I figured he drank, and I was correct. So we went and got a drink. We had this conversation, and he was just like, yeah, I'm done, this isn't working, it's never going to work, it's not going to work for me, it doesn't work for other people, and I was like, okay. And I got his background. Found out that he had played sports professionally, and I was like, look, you have the background to do this, and you have the drive. I said, the problem is your business thinking is off. It's unrealistic. You're trying to create stuff that doesn't work out. It doesn't exist. I said, if you'd give me 90 days, I could help you get to where you need to go. But you're going to have to, I'm going to give you the instructions, and you're not going to like it, and you're probably not going to want to do it, but you will get there. And it didn't take 90 days to get him where it took about 6 months. 6 months, he basically mastered the process that we were talking about of, being able to contact somebody, being able to present to somebody, being able to get them through the process. The end result was he basically ended up at the top of the chart, but he also, probably was the fastest growing person in the state of Indiana that year, his team specifically. He was the number 1 recruiter, and out of the top 10 recruiters, I think we had 4 or 5, maybe even 6 people on the list of the top recruiters for that year. And that wasn't necessarily because anybody was so good. It was just we were following something that was realistic that would actually work, and then it just became how much effort we want to put into it. So that's what I got. Your dreams can be unrealistic. Your goals have to be more realistic and more time sensitive because they're time sensitive. Your plans absolutely have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. And then your DMO, your daily method of operation, has to be dead on. If it's off, success is made in a day. Or success is made daily, not in a day. So you can't get it all done in one day. You're going to have to do the right things day after day after day after day after day, and they compound. So that's what I have.
All right. So if you guys would like these notes, we are going to post them on the wall in the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show Facebook group. And we're also going to be downloading each one of these episodes to YouTube, so you're welcome to go follow us on there. And with that, that is what we have for you today. We are going to go over Chapter 8 on Monday. And we look forward to seeing you then.